After Donald Trump spent the first month of his presidency alienating, abandoning, and attacking our allies, he was finally met face to face with one of them, French President Emanuel Macron, who did not hold back in calling out Donald Trump and confronting him over his praise of dictators, but specifically Vladimir Putin. Now, there was a clip that already went kind of viral of Macron correcting Trump in the Oval Office, but what I thought was just a little bit more interesting is what he had to say in the press conference that followed, confronting Donald Trump for his praise of Putin and setting the record straight on how we should be treating Russia. It was an incredible clip, and I can't wait to get into it. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we get into that press conference, of course, we need the context of Macron in the Oval Office. So let's check out this clip right here.
Compensated, but not by Ukraine, by Russia, because they were the one to aggress.
Again, just so you understand, Europe is loaning the money to Ukraine. They get their money back.
No, in fact, to be frank, we paid 60% of the total default, and it was through, like the US, loans, guarantee, grants, and we provided real money. To be clear,
Yeah.
We have 230 billion frozen assets in Europe, Russian assets, but this is not as a collateral of a loan because this is not our belonging. So they are frozen. If at the end of the day, in the negotiation we will have with Russia, they're ready to give it to us, super. It will be loan at the end of the day, and Russia will have paid for that.
If you
This is my
believe
wish.
that, it's okay with me.
Mr. President,
They get their money back, we don't, and now we do. But, you know, that's
We will
only
fight
fair.
both.
Mr. President, should you take Russia?
With respect to what, Russia?
In solving a peace deal, you said there will be major economic development transactions which will take place between the United States and Russia.
Yeah, we're trying to do some economic development deals. They have a lot of things that we want, and we'll see. I mean, I don't know if that will come to fruition, but we'd love to be able to do that if we could. You know, they have massive rare earth. It's a very large, it's actually the largest in terms of land. It's by far the largest country. And they have very valuable things that we could use, and we have things that they could use, and it would be very good if we could do that. I think it would be a very good thing for world peace and lasting peace. Well, I mean, our first, by far, our first thing that we want to do, the first element of the overall transaction is ending the war. But if, just as we're doing with Ukraine, if we could do some economic development in terms of Russia and getting things that we want, something like that would be possible, yes.
It's really funny that any of our allies calling out or correcting Donald Trump sound much more like an American president than Donald Trump ever could. They sound much more like liberal defenders of our democracy than Donald Trump ever will. It is just crazy to hear, and really nice to see Donald Trump get fact-checked to his face. I'm sure he didn't exactly enjoy that one, but like I said, it only continued to get worse for him, because after spending the week saying that Zelensky is somehow a dictator, which is crazy that that's an insult for Donald Trump. He wants to be a dictator. You'd think that's a positive for Trump, not a pejorative. But after spending this week with so much Putin praise, we saw Macron actually say how we should treat Putin, in a clip that we're going to check out right here.
I stopped my discussion with President Putin after Bucha and the war crimes because I considered that, we had nothing to get from him in that time. Now this is a chance, there is a big change because there is a new US administration. So this is a new context. So there is good reason for President Trump to re-engage with President Putin. But my experience is the following, and I shared it with President Trump and the team. In 2014, our predecessors negotiated peace with President Putin. But because of the lack of guarantees, and especially security guarantees, President Putin violated this peace. And I had several discussions, especially beginning of 2022, several times, 7 hours with President Putin, 15 days before launching of the attack. He denied everything, but we didn't have security guarantees. So this is why being strong and having deterrence capacities is the only way to be sure it will be respected. And I insisted on that. And this is why I believe that the US has the capacity to do so. And this is why I think we should never say, I will never send any boots on the ground, because you give a blank check to violate any type of commitment. So I think it's good to have discussion. I think it's useful to have negotiation. I think it's super important to go to the peace. But my strong point was to say, let's try to get something first which can be assessed, checked and verified. And let's be sure that we build sufficient guarantees on the short run. And this is where we are ready to be engaged. As for France, a lot of my European colleagues are ready to be engaged. But we do need this American backup, because this is part of the credibility of the security guarantees. And this is our collective deterrence capacity. And I have the feeling that the president has this capacity.
Putin should not be embraced. He does not deserve a big hug from Donald Trump or anyone. I know Trump thinks that they're friends because he's so easily swayed, because he's so stupid. But anyone can win him over. One of the very scary parts of the presidency right now, how our allies are, maybe they're not abandoning us, but they certainly do feel abandoned. We're leaving behind all of those closest who have our interest in mind, who care to keep a good relationship with the United States while welcoming in those who are ready and willing to take advantage of Donald Trump's deteriorating mental state. And Vladimir Putin is certainly one of those people. And it's who Donald Trump has surrounded himself with. You want to take a look at the closest person to Donald Trump who's clearly taking advantage of how tired and worn down he is, the fact that he just wants to spend all of his time golfing? It's Elon Musk. Who's not the shadow president, he's the real president. He's running the show and having Donald Trump do his dirty work for him by defending all of his indefensible actions. Just take a listen to Trump right here.
That was also part of the Harvard poll. Do you agree with what President Trump is doing with Elon and others that are looking for the waste, fraud, and abuse? And the numbers were staggering. It was like 70% to 2%. Everybody wants to find out. They don't like it. And you know, the radical left or whoever it may be starts screaming about the Constitution, but it has nothing to do with the Constitution. It has to do with fairness to this country. It has to do with being ripped off.
It's funny that he's not realizing what he is admitting, saying that, you know, Doge has nothing to do with the Constitution. No, it doesn't. You're violating the Constitution. You are breaking the law, concentrating every lever of our government into some ridiculous, nonsensical, like fake agency at this point that has nothing holding it back from ripping apart the most important agencies for keeping people fed, safe, secure, housed. Like, no, Donald, that does not have anything to do with the Constitution. That's not exactly how the founding fathers drew it up. I don't think that's what James Madison was thinking about when he was warning of the autocrat that you and Elon, I guess, collectively as a lump are. Really don't think that that's what they had in mind. And they certainly didn't have in mind us siding with dictators. And, of course, that's what this video was about at first. And so I want to close with that. And a call out that Bernie Sanders had that I've come back to a couple times just because I think it's so important.
Every single day, Russia continues to rain down hundreds of missiles and drones on Ukrainian cities. Putin's forces have massacred civilians and kidnapped thousands of Ukrainian children, bringing them back to Russian re-education camps. These atrocities led the International Criminal Court to issue an arrest warrant for Putin in 2023 as a war criminal. Further, Trump called Ukrainian President Zelensky a dictator. That's not true either. Zelensky won 75% of the vote in free elections. In fact, his approval rating is higher than Trump's. In the midst of a brutal war, Ukraine's parliament continues to function and free and unfettered political debate takes place. Trump claimed that our European allies have done little to support Ukraine in its fight against Putin's invasion. He said the United States has contributed 3 times more than Europe. but that's another lie. In fact, Europe has provided more aid to Ukraine than the United States. But it's not just that Trump is lying again. That's not new. It's what this all reveals about where he wants to take our country, and in fact, the entire world. Trump is cozying up to Vladimir Putin. So who is Putin? And what kind of world does he want to build? Putin is a dictator who crushed Russia's movement toward democracy after the end of the Cold War. Russia holds sham elections every 6 years where Putin wins 90% of the vote, and authorities don't even try to hide their ballot stuffing. There is no freedom of speech or free media in Putin's Russia. Protests are violently suppressed. Tens of thousands of people are imprisoned for protesting Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Political dissidents are harassed or thrown into jail. The bravest, people like Alexei Navalny, are killed outright. Hundreds of thousands of Russians have fled Putin's brutal regime since his invasion of Ukraine. But Putin has maintained control in his country by offering Russia's oligarchs a simple deal. If you give me absolute power, I'll let you steal as much as you want from the Russian people. And that's why in a country where many are struggling economically, Russian oligarchs have stashed trillions of dollars in offshore tax accounts. That is the Russian leader that Trump admires. That is the Russian oligarchy that he supports. But that is not the perspective of the American people. We know, and we are proud of, the fact that the United States of America is the longest standing democracy in the world. We know that many hundreds of thousands of brave Americans over the years have fought and died to defend democracy. We also know that our allies in the world are those countries that believe in democracy, not authoritarianism. In this critical moment in our history, I hope that every American, regardless of political perspective, will stand tall and say yes to democracy, no to oligarchy, and no to authoritarianism.
It is clear what the right side of history is. Let's be on it. History will not be kind to Donald Trump, and neither should we. We have to call him out. And it's what we're going to do on this show every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.